So first of all, thank you for being here. Our prayer for you and also for us is that this whole idea of being sent or living sent is something that becomes a mindset for you and for us. That's not just a cool slogan or not just a cool idea, but something that you actually really start living, whether it's here, near, or far. So we are humbled to speak on this topic of living on mission as a family because, family life is not easy, and doing it in a way that honors the Lord is even harder. So we are not doing this talking down to you, but rather we're on the same plane with you because, like I said, life is hard, and we're not in any way thinking that we're superior to you. Life, especially as a family, can be very, very challenging. So for this talk, we thought, okay, how do we frame everything that we're doing? And we came up with all this stuff, and then we're like, how much time do we have? Well, we have 20 minutes. So good luck to you. It's going to be a fast ride.
Buckle up.
But you have an outline, I think. Maybe you don't. I'm not really sure. We were told to give you one. I don't know if you...
It's actually better for us if you don't have our original outline, because
but-
we like to go off script.
Yeah, and the goal, what I was going to say is we have like little taglines that we'll try to give you as kind of things to follow along. And if you have questions, write them down, and then we'll have plenty of time to talk about those questions.
Yeah.
Before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of things, we wanted to start with this question of, okay, what does living on mission look like in the first place? And to start with, it's important to get this idea that living on mission has to do with a heart posture. Like, what is your heart posture? And three things that are important for this heart posture of living on mission is humility, faith, and a willingness to engage. Humility, faith, and a willingness to engage. Because if God is calling you to do something, if He's sending you right here in Greenwood to share the gospel with the people around you, you have to have humility, you have to have faith, and you have to be willing to engage the people that God is calling you to talk to. So if you're like, oh, that sounds really challenging from the get-go, no problem. The fix for these three things, if you don't have them, is real easy. Pray. Lord, I don't have the humility. I don't know what to say to these people. I don't have faith to believe that you're going to use me. Just pray. And God will answer that prayer. But be careful, if you pray, God actually answers prayers. So, you got to then be committed. But anyways, it's really important that you have this heart posture of saying, yes, Lord, I want to be able to do this. And wherever I have a lack, please supply that I can do these things. So, living on mission as a family, what mission are we actually living on? Probably don't need to elaborate a whole lot on this, right? You know the Great Commission, don't need to talk a whole lot about this. But the simple way of saying it is the mission that you're living on is Jesus' mission. It's not Redeemer's vision. It's not Doxa's mission. It's not any one person other than Jesus. He has given us a mission, and that's the mission we want to follow. So whether we are doing that here or near or far, if we're living on mission, we're living on Jesus' mission. That has to be clear. Anything else is just us trying to, in our human ways, trying to say what Jesus has already said. For you, the question is, where's God calling you? Where is God sending you? The thing is, He's always going to send you to do stuff here, that is, wherever you are at the moment. He may send you near, and possibly He will send you far, but He will always send you right here, wherever that is. So the question is, how are you going to engage the Lord on that? So before we go into this again, the nitty-gritty stuff, we want to start with a story about what does it look like to be on mission as a family, and Deanna's going to tell you a story.
And thinking about not just living sent as a family, but what has that looked like in our family specifically? And we'll get into a little bit of like, what does that say about your family culture, your family identity? Like, how do you actually live that out? How does that play into hospitality and things like that? But we were actually trying to think of like, what's a really funny story of like a time when our kids were super engaged in engaging other people, like right where we were. And Dennis reminded me of a story. We were hosting some people who were from out of town, pretty far. They had flown in from another country, and then they drove down to us, and we were just supposed to have dinner together. And I mean, our kids were little at the time, so it was chaos. Everything was a mess. It was just like, welcome to our chaos, which is really what Living Sent is all about. And there was a freak snowstorm, and there was so much snow that these people didn't think that they were going to be able to drive back to the place that they were staying several hours north of us. And I thought, well, that's really great, because I really planned on them only being here for about 2 hours, and I planned dinner, but I don't have dessert, and they come from a cultural background that is like really heavy into hospitality, and I feel like I'm really missing the mark here if I like can't keep feeding them while they're stuck here at my house. And didn't have anything in the house. The kids had eaten all the snacks like they always do. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I looked outside, and I was like, oh, it like felt like manna at the moment. And there was snow everywhere. And I remembered I had this really great recipe for snow ice cream. And it's basically condensed like milk and like, I don't know, snow. And so I asked the people, I was like, so a real Midwestern treat here. How would you like to try some snow ice cream? And they thought we were joking. Obviously, never done it. It was super fun. I sent the kids out. The kids were so into it because it's something that was really like something we did as a family. Got like bowls and spoons and brought in all this fresh snow.
Only the white snow.
Yes.
Right. Just
the most important part of this recipe. And we made it, and these people like talked about it forever. We ran into them years later, and they still talked about the snow ice cream and how like it was so simple, it was so unscripted, it was so genuine, and so just like what the Lord literally provided outside. And back in Germany, we're also getting a freak snowstorm right now, and the girls just sent us a picture making snow ice cream and bringing it over to our neighbors. And I thought, wow, that's just a really perfect picture. It was nothing that we had from ourselves, but the Lord provided the opportunity and the resources, and we were faithful as a family to steward those things. And now such a silly thing has become like a really cool story of something our family did, and the Lord provided it.
That's right. So living on mission doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to see the right opportunities right in front of you.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about the first main point. Who are we as a family on mission?
Yeah, so the key idea, this is our first key idea, I guess, is a family on mission is a family that, and here's the key word, intentionally opens their life and their home for God to use. That is really the building block of what living on mission is, or better said, a family that is a sent family intentionally opens up their life and their home for God to use. And we've been in Germany for almost 5 years now, and we were here in Greenwood 3 years before that. And in those 3 years, I had the privilege of homeschooling. And the goal then, knowing that we were going to Germany, really was less about academics. I knew that we were moving to another country, so it mattered very little at that point. But one of the main goals and guiding principles for us became creating a sent culture within our family and being really intentional about our family identity being one which is sent. We did that through a lot of different things. We listened to missionary stories together. We looked for opportunities in our own neighborhood. We have 3 kids. I don't know if you guys have kids. They don't always really love each other and get along. So we talked about like, what does it look like to love your siblings? And it really was simple and uncomplicated. And I think that time and those principles that apply in your home and in your neighborhood also apply if you want to take that to Germany or wherever the Lord might lead you to. The key component for our family was really hospitality. Hospitality is the catalyst that the Lord often uses in order to allow your family to live sent wherever you are. There are a couple of key principles talking about hospitality, and there's so many great resources out there about that. But a couple of things that we did is everybody participated. That's super fun because not everybody always wants to participate in cleaning up the house and preparing for guests or doing the shopping or all the simple things that we do. But everybody participates, everybody contributes, imperfectly but wholeheartedly. And everyone helps welcome, serve, and love others in Jesus' name and for God's glory. So those are kind of the three main hospitality keys. As we live those out, one of the things we had to understand is that our family worked in a unit. I've heard people talk about families that are like living room families or bedroom families, and we definitely worked hard to create a living room family. Everybody wasn't scattering off to their own bedrooms and doing their own things, but we worked really hard to have a living room family. And that sort of set the stage for having a family that welcomes people with hospitality because we're already there doing life together in the messy chaos and we invite people into it. So having a family identity that uses hospitality to welcome others in and understanding your family as a unit. And in that, our kids have always seen themselves, because of the posture and the vocabulary that we use to talk about this, they see themselves as missionaries. Now that we're in Germany, people will often ask our kids, so what is it like to be missionary kids? And they immediately turn their nose up to that, like, I'm not even sure what that means, but we're not missionary kids, like, we are missionaries. There's different schools of thought on like how to do that, but our kids were always really bought into the mission of, yeah, we go as a family, we do this together, and we're all missionaries in that way. So that was pretty key, like seeing the family as a unit. And honestly, that starts with who you are as a person. And those are the things that you're doing in your own walk with Christ. Like they said earlier today, if you're not abiding, if you're not, as a person, spending time in the Word, as a married couple, spending time together praying, discipling your kids and seeing them as not obstacles, but really like missionaries that you're also sending out. And then building a family culture with rhythms that become normal and speak to living a sent family. All of those things contribute to how you live on mission and has a big part of your family identity and family culture.
Mm-hmm. So then the question is, or the next thought is, why God uses families in mission work. And there's a whole lot of stuff that we could say about that. Family, whose idea was family? God's idea, right? And even when you think about redemption, how God saves us, the way that the Bible talks about that has a lot of family language. God is our Father, right? We get adopted into the family. Like, there's a lot of that language that already says how important family is, and why not use everything that God has given us in those things to then say, what does it look like to live sent? Well, let's use that language. Let's use the unit that God has already created to live sent. And so when you think about what does the Bible say about that, I'll try to explain a couple of things about that. The idea, though, is that the rhythms of a gospel-centered home reveal the culture of a kingdom. Let me say that again. The rhythms of a gospel-centered home reveal the culture of a kingdom. The question is, whose kingdom? Christ's kingdom or your own little kingdom? Well, I came home from work and, I just want to watch the ball game. Or, well, I have kids who need to be discipled, and how am I going to do that when I come home tired from work? So what kind of culture do you have as a family, and who is actually working on building that culture? And that's not easy. That's a lot easier said than done. We can stand here and be like, oh, we live that as a missionary family. We live sent, and our kids love talking about Jesus. And yeah, Monday and Friday maybe, and the rest of the week it's like, oh my gosh, how hard is this? So, understand that it's easier said than done, but it's really important to have the clarity on, like, you are going to form some kind of culture in your family. What is it going to look like? And the things that we are hearing at this conference, how are we going to bring them into our family to live those things? And it's not that any one of us who is talking at this conference has it all figured out. We're all still learning, and we continue to have to readjust on things. But what we're trying to do is, in the end, have rhythms of a gospel-centered home that are ultimately, Jesus-focused and not us-focused. Think about, for example, of Deuteronomy 6. In Deuteronomy 6, we hear that we should talk about the things of God, whether we sit or stand, or whether we sleep, or whether we go out, or all the time, all the time, all the time. How are you doing that? How are you doing that as a married couple? How are you doing that with your kids? How are you doing that with your neighbors? How are you talking about Jesus? I love the way that Joe framed that for us. It's not actually that complicated. We like to make it complicated, maybe so that we can hide behind the complexity of things, but it really isn't that complicated. Think about Jesus. Where does Jesus do a lot of his ministry? In people's homes. Think about that wee little man that climbed off the tree, right? Jesus said, come on down, I got to be in your house tonight, right? And what do you do in the house, especially in that culture? You sit, you eat, you talk. That's where the ministry happens. So living on mission as a family is very clear. Jesus did that. Think about Acts chapter 2. What does the early church do? Well, I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to bring all my stuff, and we're all going to live together as a bigger family, and we're going to try to live on mission. So if we have our eyes open, it's everywhere in the Bible. Question is, how do we then do that? And we've already touched on this, but three things that really are important to this question of why God uses families, or why families matter in the context of missions, is number one, families model the gospel in everyday interactions. So all of you already know, relationships are hard. People mess up. Got to ask forgiveness. You got to repent of your sin, right? You got to figure out, how do I now live with this person after they have offended me, after they have hurt me? And so you live the gospel just in everyday relationships. The second thing is, there's no better way of breaking down barriers than kids. We just were at the Christmas market in our town, and we're just walking around and doing different things, and all of a sudden I remembered that I had to pick up something from one of the booths, and Deanna was taking pictures with the other two kids, and one of our kids just stood there looking around, and then got a little confused and walked up to a man and said, "Hey, Dad, can I buy the what is it called, the nuts that we have bought? Can I buy them off of you?" Because she wanted to not have me eat them, but she wanted to buy them off of me. And so she stands next to this man and says, "Hey, Dad, can I?" So she speaks German to a strange German guy. And she speaks English to a strange German guy, because we speak English at home. And the guy just looks at her and he's like, "I think you're trying to look for your dad, right?" And she's like, "Oh my God." And she was so embarrassed, right? Talk to the wrong guy. But that's so cool, because kids do that all the time in various ways. They break down barriers between people, and all of a sudden you can have a conversation. Use that. Don't make mission so complicated. Use your kids in that way. And yeah, God can open a lot of doors.
She would love that you shared that. Okay, so the next key idea is what does living on mission as a family actually look like? Practically speaking. And I'm sure that none of this is really new, but maybe to frame it a little bit, I think sometimes when you get out of your own context, you can see your family culture and the things that you do a little bit more clearly. And certainly moving to Germany did that for us. But hospitality is not something that we do, but it is part of who we are as a family following Jesus. We haven't talked a ton about what we actually do in Germany as our ministry, but Dennis is a biblical counselor, and we have, I don't know if you're familiar with 12 Stones Ministries, but they do retreat-style counseling over multiple days. And we have replicated that ministry in Germany. So we have a cottage. It's actually an old cow shed from 1800, which is mind-blowing, that we've renovated. And lots
It doesn't
of people,
smell anymore.
Yeah, no. Lots of people have helped us renovate this place. And we welcome people in for several days. Some of the most hurting people with really complicated problems who have been searching for a very long time to come and rest and to be fed and to find solace and to find biblical counseling. And so the kids are actually a pretty big part of that because they are helping make beds, they're helping cook meals, they're helping tend to the garden, and they are really a part of our ministry. So they might not be the person who's sitting in the counseling chair, obviously, but they are really integral in the way that our family does ministry over there, especially with the hospitality piece. And I would say, like, hospitality, whether it's like we're doing that at this cottage house or whether you're doing that in your own home, is such a really easy way to involve your kids. In the case of our home, but also in the case at Clues, that is the name, it's a German word for refuge, actually, for this cottage house. So whether it's at our home or whether it's at Clues, the table really is the discipleship hub. We have people who are coming for intensive retreats and counseling, people who are coming for weekly counseling. There's a really cute chapel that's right on the walking path. It's sort of like the front door to our ministry. Often we'll meet people who are walking by and just asking questions like, what is this little prayer chapel here for? And maybe we'll invite them in for coffee and things like that. So the table has really become like a central hub for discipleship, especially for people who are like from the community. That is where people, guests, people are coming for counseling too, and our friends and family really see that the gospel is being lived out. They're entering into our rhythms and into prayer time, into meal time, and they are just being with us as a family, and that is really living out the gospel. It's a great opportunity to model grace and forgiveness and to model with your kids and also with the people coming in that, again, it can be a little chaotic. One of my favorite examples, we weren't expecting guests, but that is like often the case. Somebody will ring our doorbell and it's like, oh man, somebody's here, they're going to come in, they're going to sit at our table. And me and my oldest daughter were folding a ton of laundry. There's just like laundry piles all over the living room. And we hear the doorbell ring and like panic was like, oh no, like we cannot invite somebody in here. And without even thinking, she gathers up all of the laundry. It was mostly towels. She gathers up all the towels, and I actually knew who was coming. It's kind of funny because she freaked out, and she took all the towels into the kitchen and threw them in the kitchen. I'm like, what are you even doing? It was like the furthest room she thought they wouldn't go in. I'm like, why'd you throw the towels into the kitchen? And I was like, people know we have towels. It's okay. But it was a really good teaching opportunity because it's like, yeah, of course we have laundry laying all over the place, and so does every other family. Like, it's totally fine. Like, people can come in and I think feel more comfortable in that kind of environment where they can just enter into your family right where it is. So that's something that we try to do. So yeah, our kids participate even when it's messy and even when they're throwing our clean towels onto the kitchen floor, trying to make that look nice.
Yeah, and those things become opportunities for you to have good conversation later with your kids, right? Why'd you do that? Why did you not do something else? You know,
Yeah.
and why were we even afraid that like somebody sees our stuff, right? And it's a simple conversation. You just have to ask yourself, do I want to have that conversation?
Yeah.
But there's opportunity for it.
Yeah, for sure. Another principle, as far as it comes to like living on mission as a family, is that mission shapes family life, and then family life becomes your mission. Like, they're so intertwined and integrated with one another. Like as you pour into your family, and your family is doing ministry out of that, that ministry then comes back to your family. It's super similar with the church and the community. Like the church becomes a hub for people to come in and to receive the gospel, and those people then go out and are sent and witness in their community. And it's very similar with the family. Again, ministry is something then that the kids see lived out. It's not something that they're just watching. It's not like a show they're watching, like, oh, we're doing ministry as a family. Oh, my family moved to Germany and my dad's a counselor and we sit and like watch him do that. It's really that, no, that this is what we're living out together as a family. And again, to different degrees. Like I said, they're not sitting in the counseling room. They often have no idea who's there for what, but they are participating at different levels. And so, yeah, living sent and living on mission becomes something that they're living and not just something that they're watching, waiting till they're older and they can do that. It's really part of what we do as a family.
Mm-hmm. So the question then is, and we heard a little bit about this idea in the Q&A earlier, how do you sustain family life on mission? And again, the answer is not flashy, it's not complicated. Got to know family life is messy. And so you have to be prayerful, you have to be humble, and you have to be dependent on Christ. Like if you have those things, it might not look to you like you're accomplishing a lot, but God can work through you. So the thing is, you have to start at home with yourself, with your spouse, with your family, before you minister to others. So you got to prioritize discipleship at home. Like, is somebody pouring into you? Are you learning about Jesus? Are you loving Jesus more because of the things you do in your church? And then how is that moving from you to the next person, to your spouse, to your children? How do you do that? And it's really important because you can't live the sent life if you yourself are not plugged in, if you're not abiding. We heard that earlier several times. Like that's like your energy, your wisdom, all these things that you need for this sent life. They will come to an end if you are the source. If Christ is the source, you can do all kinds of things and for a very long time. But that's why it's important. You have to prioritize the discipleship at home first. That sounds selfish, but just like in the airplane when the oxygen mask comes, like you don't give it to someone else, you take it yourself first so that you can help someone else if they need it. And it's the same at home. You can't disciple people out there, even if that's just your neighbor, if you yourself don't have it. So think about what could that look like in your home, and think about what habits you can create. Like we have this habit that when we eat dinner together, we go around the table and we have very simple conversations. We call it high, low, buffalo. Like, what's a high? What was something good in your day? What was something bad in your day? And buffalo is just random. Like, what other random thing can you think of that you want to tell us today? And
usually the buffalo starts the most conversation.
Yes. And most of the time it's something funny. But it always creates opportunity then to have a conversation about where was Jesus in that? Is there a prayer request in that somewhere? What have you learned from this situation? All kinds of things. So think about what can you do in your context so that you can move forward in this sent life, especially with this idea of prioritizing discipleship at home. And one really, really important thing for living this sent life is you have to protect family connections. Talking with somebody, they said, sometimes ministry is like our other child that we have. And that other child gets all the attention, and the actual children that you have, they don't get enough of your attention. So you got to make sure that you don't get so disconnected because you live so on mission for Jesus that the mission at home is actually not a mission anymore, because that's your first responsibility, to take care of the ministry at home. So we could keep talking about all kinds of things, but maybe we can stop it here and you guys can throw out your questions. We can have a conversation. There's no dumb question. There's a lot more that we could say, a lot of things that we wanted to say but don't have the time for, but we'll just open it up to you guys.
Did you both speak German before you went over there, or is it something you had to learn?
Yeah, I was born and raised there, so it's fairly natural to me. Even though after 18 years of being here, I had a lot of stumbling to do. But I think I've regained my composure.
The first time that Dennis preached, like a few weeks after we got to Germany, I was like, oh boy, they're going to think he can't speak German anymore.
Yeah, it was rough. Yeah.
It was a little bit funny.
And you learned, my wife learned some of it before we went, but a lot of the real learning came when we were on the ground.
Yeah.
So.
And all of our kids are now fluent as well. However, when we moved to Germany, they had exposure, obviously, hearing Dennis speak it. We did not do a good job at him only speaking German or something like that. Honestly, we started that way when the kids were little and got real lazy real fast. Because we weren't immediately moving back to Germany, so there was no need to create the pressure of like sticking to a language. But they had some exposure from different visits or from relatives. But essentially, they spoke no German when we moved over 5 years ago. And I would say the first 3 months were terrifying. The next 3 months were like, okay, I think they're learning it. And then after a year, it was clear that it was going to be fine. And surely they have surpassed me in my German with no problem whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So
It also helps when you start reading German, like our youngest daughter, because she is kind of like a people pleaser, like she doesn't like to be on the outs. So one of her classmates said, oh, I'm reading this book. And so all of a sudden she was like, I want to read this book. Well, it's a 10 book series, like 2,500 pages. So she started reading, and she read the whole thing in like 3 weeks.
I actually didn't
We were
think that
like,
she
"This
knew
is
what she was
insane."
reading, so I was like, we need to quiz you and see it. And she really was. And actually her German grade went.
Yeah.
She's like,
That's
getting a good grade.
amazing.
Yeah.
So you didn't see the language being, obviously because you spoke of it wasn't a barrier. 'Cause I just think about if I wanted to go on a missions trip internationally, I know when I go on vacation to down to Mexico and I can't speak it,
Yep.
and especially when it comes to finances and things like that, I'm like,
Yeah.
it was terrifying at times just to
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
understand
For sure.
what was being said or how to communicate. So I was just curious what kind of barriers that.
I wouldn't recommend moving to another country without speaking the language. That for sure. If you're talking about more like a short-term missions trip, especially the ones for Redeemer, they all have partners that are speaking the language. So I think they've always taken that into consideration with the teams that have come to us, so it's been fine.
I think also it depends on really what you're doing.
Yeah.
If it's like short-term, mid-term, long-term, like it makes a huge difference. Like a lot of the long-term missions, you are actually being sent on the field to learn the language there because
Yeah.
it's best to learn the language in context. But that, again, is also something, if when you talk about all the things that are necessary to be sent somewhere, like we heard earlier, like passion has to be a big thing. Like, are you really into this or not? Well, but there's other circumstantial things like language. If you can't actually speak the language, if that's not a strength, then you might want to think about whether or not you're actually sent over there. It might actually be better over here. But especially for short-term stuff, being human, like you can get by with so much without saying a single word. Like you use sign language, and it works. But again, you have to have a little bit of that willingness to have that discomfort to say, okay, well, I'm going to do that. But if you want to do that long term, for sure, you have to think about, like, is that going to be sustainable or not?
Short term in our context, most people in Germany speak English, so you
Come on over.
They start teaching English in 3rd grade, so you'd be hard pressed to really, you wouldn't be in a pickle in most places. So, at least in our neck of the woods.
Germany's not known as a Christian culture naturally, so how do you find people that want biblical counseling? And then if you're using 12 Stones model, where do you find your advocates?
Good question.
Oh, Germans love the idea of advocates.
So just for context, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, so when people come for counseling, they have to bring what we call an advocate. So it's a friend who comes alongside so that the person who gets the counseling is not coming on their own. Because the problem is, you have a lot of these problems that you have because you don't actually live in community. So in order to actually get you back on track and keep you on track, you should have somebody who walks this out with you. And of course, for the non-emotional German men, it's really hard to open up to somebody and say, well, will you come and listen to my problems? But, and this is really important, a very good friend of ours who was very instrumental in getting us to Germany, who has a lot of connections in Germany, he was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't force this idea of advocates when you do the counseling. And we do the counseling in this retreat format with the advocates, and I do that in the local church also. Like when somebody in our church says, hey, I need counseling, then I say, well, where's your friend, right? And the first thing you hear is like, well, I don't have them. And my argument is always like, well, you need them, it's biblical, so start praying. And even if that means you have to wait for counseling for 4 to 6 weeks, we'll pray together that you find one, and I have yet to have a situation where that person wasn't found. And so even though we weren't sure if this was really going to work, even from the natives there who said, be careful, I'm not compromising on the goals that we have, and the Lord has yet to allow a situation where that doesn't work. So we just, you got to stick to your guns and just move forward. And the thing is, if people knew what kind of help they needed, they would have already found it. And so when they come to you and say, we need help, but we don't know what to do, and you give them that kind of framework, they'll be happy to oblige. And every single time, they see the benefit of it. It's hard, and it creates a lot of extra work, but I've been doing this stuff now for 18 years, and I would not counsel without advocates. Like, I sometimes do it just out of necessity to say, like, I'd rather start the conversation and you find somebody, but that's rare. So, yeah, go ahead.
So my husband and I have 2 little boys, 3 and a half, and not quite 1. Though our desire is to do all the things, all the hospitality, do all the things in our church, outside of our church. With 2 littles, it is basically impossible to do all of that and spend time with Jesus. We're just desperate for time with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so are there any things that you pared down in that season of life that eventually you brought back, eventually grew up to do more things, but anything that you were like, we can't miss this, even if we hear other things, what can we not miss as a family?
That's a really good question.
I can say, I remember both Dennis and I were at staff at a pretty big church up in the Chicagoland area, and I had the same question. And we had a children's ministry coordinator on our campus who was just amazing. And I was just like, man, I want to be her. Like, she's doing all the things with her kids, and like, what? And I asked her one day, and our kid, actually, one of them wasn't even born yet. One was 2 and one was 1. And 3 and 1, actually. And I remember asking her, like, Jen, like, how did you do all of it? Like, how do you do all this with kids? And she's like, oh, I did none of this when my kids were little. Like, that's not the expectation. Like, when your kids are little and that age, the reality is that the Lord is using that time oftentimes to prepare you for a season that will come down the road. And so the essentials are like staying in God's word and being faithful to capture the lessons that he's giving you. I'll tell you what, like, nothing is more like sanctifying than having small children, believe me. And I'm not a very flexible person.
Marriage actually is more simple.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't know. Are you saying this to me? Or to me? I think I'm not naturally flexible at all. And I can tell you that without those years with our kids being small, I would not have had the flexibility that I needed to do ministry. I sure as heck wouldn't have been moving to another country, I could tell you that. So take the lessons that the Lord is giving you in those moments. Small group is key. Like you need to have discipleship. And then besides that, you can pray and have unity with your husband about what other things to add in. When our kids were really little, we did refugee ministry. And I love to tell these stories about our little one going to an apartment to set it up for a refugee that was coming in from somewhere and popping the little pack and play in the middle of the floor with some snacks and some toys while we put together beds and made things up. And a family from Burundi or a family from Iraq coming and talk about like kids breaking down barriers, like having a baby to play with, like it was just, that was amazing. And so that's what ministry at that time looked like, was a lot of taking our kids with us, and they learned to be flexible too, actually.
And I would also say, again, we don't have to make it too complicated. Like when you think about where do we start? Well, we start at the home. Like, what can I do to help my children, disciple my children, and me learning at the same time, right? Because my time with Jesus is maybe not as frequent as I would like it to be. I mean, reading a storybook Bible to your child and being reminded of the gospel in simple terms can just be as effective for quiet time as, me sitting by myself with my study Bible and like, I'm going to read 5 chapters, because the gospel is actually not that complicated, but it's having that mindset of being open to those things. And that time spent with your kids very intentionally prepares them to live that in a different way when they're older. Because if you don't do that now, then you might open the doors and say, hey, we're going to invite these people for ministry. And they're like, ministry, like, oh, great. But if they learn to love Jesus and if they understand the gospel, that becomes more natural to them too. But like Deanna said, like, there's seasons for it, right? Like, and one of the most difficult things that I say in counseling all the time, stop comparing yourself to other people, right? Because we're in a different stage that you're in, and that you're in, that you're in. And if we always think about like the best version of whatever is just right in front of us, like now I got to be like them, like that's never going to work anyway. And it's so discouraging when we can do so much with so little and just try to be faithful in those things. So. Other questions? Come on, Joel, you have a question. I know it.
I just forgot it.
All right, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a stay-at-home mom right now. So I'm with the kids 24/7. My husband's doing ministry full-time, which is amazing. And so I think both of us are marinating in different cultures all day long. And so I've never felt this wrestle of one of you really advocating for family life together and the other one advocating for ministry. How did you find common ground in those things to find unified to stay at home?
That's a really good question.
How did we do that?
How are we doing that? I'm just kidding.
Well, I think...
We'll take answers from the crowd now.
No, I think that is a very, very difficult thing, because both of these areas are really important things. Like, we never want to say like, well, ministry is not important, get your butt home and like help me with the kids, right? But we also don't want to say, well, you can't go to church today, I know they pay you, but I need you. Like, we have to sort of live in that tension a bit. But I think what really matters is that we have an eye for the other person, and we have an eye for where are we going. So like she said earlier, before we moved to Germany and she was homeschooling, I remember that I was at work and she called me several times like, oh, I can't do this, I can't homeschool, and I'm like, I'm at work, like I can't talk right now. And so
Your children need some discipline right now.
Yeah, wait, I'm going to drive home. Like, no. So what I said is, yeah, it's great if you can stick to the academics of homeschooling, but that's not really important. What's important is that they learn what it is to be a follower of Christ. So if two of them are arguing and you have to intervene and you have to tell them about Jesus and forgiveness and all that, and you don't get to the math stuff, like, nobody cares. Because you cannot teach character in like an academic setting and hope that they get there. Like, you have to intervene and you have to spend time doing that. So, but the question is, what does my wife in that moment need from me, even though I'm at work? Like, how can we allow these worlds to meet? And even when I come home, like, and I was just at a conference, I flew in from out of town, come back home, I'm like, well, sorry, I can't help you with the kids. Like, there's got to be some conversation had that where you say, what does it look like for us to see each other, help each other, encourage each other? Because we have these separate worlds, and there's always a question of how can we bring these things together? And that's not an easy question, and in some ways, that is also a very individual question, like from family to family that might be different, because our capacity is different too. But if I don't have an eye for her, for what she goes through every day, and then I just like, well, I got to go, I got to do this. And there were some times in ministry where we were just really, really blessed that somebody gave us latitude, like, okay, well, go home early and do that, because family is important, right? But honestly, like, there is not really an easy answer to that question. The best thing that I could say is start really having an honest conversation about what the needs are and how you can live that. And when you then come to places where you're like, we don't know how to do that, then start having conversations with people who are in that same boat, because I know there are several around you, and see how they do that and what questions they have. And because again, from the outside, that might look a lot better in terms of what they're doing, and if you really ask them, like, how's that really going, they might actually tell you that's not as cool as it looks from the outside.
I could tell you, like, something that I often think about. I remember the kids were really little, and Dennis had his hands in a lot of different ministry roles at a large church, and it felt like it was always pulling this way or the other, and he was at the time pretty much a bottom feeder, so he had to go where he was told to go, for lack of a better way of saying it. And it was Mother's Day, and all the moms were getting breakfast in bed, but some ding-dong who wasn't thinking planned a very early, like, it wasn't you, it wasn't him, planned a meeting for like men's retreats, so that all the people helping with men's retreats would gather together on Mother's Day morning to do a planning meeting. And I was like, what? And I was like, where's his wife yelling at him? So he had to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to this planning meeting before church on Mother's Day. And I was like, this will never happen again. Like, I just want to be clear. I will go to Mr. Whoever and tell him myself that I want breakfast in bed next year, right? And yeah, so I mean, we're pretty like honest with each other, and I don't have a problem making a comment like that, and he doesn't have a problem receiving it. But we have frequent conversations about things, and there's a lot of give and take, and there's a lot of difficult conversations where where you have to say, like, I feel like that was a relational withdrawal that, like, can't happen again. And I'm pretty sure I got breakfast in bed the next Mother's Day.
I don't remember. So.
But yeah, there's also just difficult conversations and big sacrifices that end up, being made.
And probably a thing to think about is to, like, how can you set up boundaries to protect some of that family time?
Yeah.
Like, most of our marriage we have lived in full-time ministry, and like, it's not just like, okay, what do you do when you're at work doing your ministry stuff, but then you have a small group, and you have friends and you want to hang out. And what we have said is we try not to have more than 2, maximum 3 nights away, like, because that's already half the week, and better 2 than 3, because otherwise, like, especially when the kids were like, and we have girls, right? 3 girls. Our oldest has hair down to here. And I remember, like, they've always had long hair. And when they're little and it's bath time and you have to sit there doing the hair, and you're like, oh my God, when is this gonna end? Oh, there's still 2 in the bathtub. Oh my gosh, like you can't do that by yourself. And if your husband is always away, that's not great. So having a conversation on boundaries to protect that family time and to have the help that you need is probably really important. So.
Oh, you remember?
Joe,
that
yes.
question?
I figured why not, but you already mentioned, and maybe, and it's kind of along the lines of what you just talked on, and what you mentioned earlier though was mission shapes family life. And, I don't know what the culture is in Germany, but we know what it is here. Culture goes this way, we have activities, sports, bands, whatever it is, hobbies that we all can be, it's just automatic, we enroll and do, and so many times I see it dictating the mission. It's like, well, I can't be at discipleship group, I can't be at church, I can't be at these things, I can't serve in this capacity, because we've committed to all these things that culture, direction that the culture is going. To be countercultural though, it's hard with explaining that to the children, it's hard to explain it to your peers. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have so I'm in a men's group, and one of the guys has his son playing soccer, and in Germany, a lot of the games that are being played are actually played on Sunday mornings. So he is really good at soccer, and he wanted to play for one of the teams where they actually have a feeder system to then, if you're really that good, can play professional one day. And he started playing that, and they as parents said, like, you can do that, but you will not be playing every game because we're not bringing you there every Sunday. So if that means that you do all the practices, but then the coach says, well, you don't get to play because you only hear so many of the actual games, then you're going to have to decide, do you want to still play, or because that's a boundary we don't want to cross. And that's a tough decision for the kid, right? Who's like, I'm going to be the next Ronaldo, or not, right? But you really got to ask yourself, like, what are the convictions that you really want to stick to? And one of the hardest things, I think, is when you try to have that conversation when you never had a gospel kind of conversation up to that point. Yeah. Like when your kid is 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 years old, like you have already lost, right? But if from the beginning you say, like, what is our priorities as a family, what is possible, what is not possible, then you can't have those. The conversation is still not easy. We still, as parents, don't want to have the conversation because you know that there's going to be crying, there's going to be like conflict and all kinds of things. But again, the sooner that you can start those conversations, the better it's going to be. And in the end, like I would say personally for me, I'd rather have them be mad at Jesus and have them figure that out with Jesus, because he doesn't have a problem figuring that out, right? He can get them where he needs to have them. But like I can just tell my kids, like, this is where I stand and this is important. And like if Jesus wants you to be a national soccer player, he'll get you there, Like he'll just walk up to the field one day and like, here I am, But that's a really tough thing to set those boundaries and to be very clear what those things are. One of the things that we did, I don't want to say early on because the kids had to be at a certain age to actually participate, but one of the things that we tried to do is like sit together as a family and create family values where the kids have a voice in saying what are the values. And if they can participate in that, they can own it. If you tell them what the family values are, they're going to be like, I don't like this one, I don't like this one. But if they participate in creating them, they will also say like, okay, well, yeah, we said we would do that as a family, so let's actually do that. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Question for you. I've not been in the ministry before, but when I do what I do, if I come home at night, I always say leave your stuff at the office, or if you go on vacation for a couple of weeks, you leave your work behind and you go do something fun. Being a Christian is a 24-hour-a-day thing. So how do you separate what you do for a living and your ministry for both of you? I mean, I know it's in different capacities. How do you you ever get downtime, or do you ever want downtime from Jesus for a period of time, just because you live it all the time? I know we're supposed to, but is that really reality in this world we live in?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, there's definitely times where you get to a point where you're like, I would like to not be able to think about all the things that I know I need to think about, and shutting things off is not always easy. Again, it's a question of what priorities do you set and what boundaries do you have. Like, do I allow my wife to tell me like when I need to put the phone down because I can answer another email or take another phone call? And that's really, really hard sometimes, because I'm definitely the guy, because, I'm a counselor. Do I have compassion? I probably do. Because we've done a lot of like spiritual gift assessment, and mercy is always 0. Like, I don't know how I do that, but I'm a counselor, so, Anyway, so if I don't give her the right to speak into it, then I'll probably not change what I do. And so you have to have that communication that says, like, let's work on that. What you said about, like, if I heard this correctly, maybe you didn't say that, I heard it this way, is like having time off from Jesus, in that sense of like feeling like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I would say God understands. Like, we're not, and I often think about Elijah, right? Elijah is there on Mount Carmel, and the fire is raining down. It's like, oh my gosh. And then, all these priests get slaughtered. And then he's like, well, this lady said she's going to kill me just like that. So I'm totally frustrated. I'm going to run away. And what does God do? Sleep. Eat.
Nappy
Sleep.
and a snacky.
Eat. And it's okay. But what am I saying to myself? Am I saying like I need time off from like my spiritual heart? There's a quote that I could probably find and would take a while, but I'm just trying to think about who said it. I think it's Oswald Chambers, who said something along the lines of, you need as little time off from spiritual things as your heart needs a pause from pumping all day. Because like we are made that way, that our heart, for as long as we are alive, it will keep pumping, right? And in the same way, like we have to keep pumping in terms of our spiritual life. There is no pause to it. We probably feel the weight of it because we have the sense of like we need to accomplish. And we don't actually. And learning to slow down, which is not easy. I probably have a lot harder time than I should. But it's, again, a mindset question of like, am I really willing to slow down so that I can actually get built back up? But the thing that we can never tell us is I need time off from Jesus. Like I need probably actually more time with Jesus more than anything else. But again, I mean, it's how we frame that and what we mean by that is going to be really important.
The word you said, weight, I guess that's more where I was coming from, the weight of the responsibility that you feel.
Yes.
In helping other people and never really getting, I'm going to say, not necessarily downtime away from them, but it's just a constant. I mean, it could be a great thing, right? That I've been at work for, back in the days when I was a retail pharmacist, I could fill 400 scripts in a day. And I get to the car at night and say, I'm sorry, Laura, I didn't have time for you one single second today. I didn't think about you all day.
Yeah.
And other days, it's constantly on my mind. So I just.
That's right. And that's totally normal. I mean, there's plenty of days where I wake up and then, I look at the clock, it's like 4 o'clock. Hi, Jesus. You're there. I know. And again, it's okay. Like, he knows, and my heart attitude is more important than my accomplishments. So. All right, it's 11 o'clock. Thank you, guys. Come on in.
No.
Oh, it's
11
German
o'clock
time.
in Germany.
Yeah. Sorry. Didn't change. But yeah, so thank you for being here, and God bless you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
talk to our partners in the lobby.
Sorry, we're talking about
Sector 7, so look forward to seeing you back.
Hello?
Yeah, I know. Broccoli and cheese. Broccoli
Even the stuff that Jason has been
So like, as I'm